Welcome to the Finance Fam Show. This is where we cover finances, faith, family, and freedom. Whether you're in debt or a seasoned investor, this show is going to help you beat the rat race, build wealth, get out of debt, invest, and live with purpose to gain freedom and impact the kingdom however the Lord calls you as a believer. Andrew and I are two dudes that love Jesus. We love our families. We love freedom. We love personal finance. And we want to help you unleash all the potential that God has in store for you. So we're not finance experts. This isn't financial advice, but we're so glad you're here. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
And welcome everyone to this episode of Finance Fam. I'm Andrew. This is Isaiah, and we are talking about fire movement variations. We've got a loaded show for you today, so we're not going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs beating the TCU Horned Frogs 65-7. I wouldn't dare talk about the most historic beatdown in the history of national championships of any sport ever. I can't even think of a championship in my lifetime that I've ever seen that. Again, we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
Did I say we're going to talk? We're not going to talk about.
We could kind of.
We're not going to talk about the embarrassment of the Horned Frogs in LA that happened a few weeks ago. We're not going to talk about the fact that I'm very excited. We're not going to talk about the fact that Georgia might be better next year and going for a three-peat again. We're not going to talk about that. You know why? Because this is not a sports podcast. Hashtag not a sports podcast. So, Isaiah.
We could talk about betting and stuff.
Oh my gosh, we need to. We need to talk about sports betting.
This is a family show. We don't do that. We do not.
Well, we'd just be talking about how bad sports betting is and how much worse it's gotten. You could also...
Actually, there's a lot of interesting...
You could also talk about how you could hack the system.
I don't know how to hack this. Can I make money?
For sure you can.
Okay.
So maybe I shouldn't talk about this. So definitely don't bet. Do not do that. Yeah. It's a bad idea. But they're also giving away free money. If you oh my gosh, this is too much. This is too much. Again, we're not going to talk about sports betting because this isn't a sports podcast. We're not going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs.
I'm really interested now.
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time.
Okay.
Yeah, basically what it is, it's a carrot that they give you that they then destroy you, with. To make you
like
bet.
Life.
Basically, you're giving an alcoholic a free drink for the first time. That's what you're doing when you're giving a future sports betting addict free $200.
It's the same concept with Robinhood. Where you're like, here, open your free gift of stock.
No, yeah, with crypto stuff.
It's a little game. Just scratch it off.
Yes, for sure. Oh man, yeah, that's a topic. That's a conversation.
Yeah.
So we have a loaded show today. So Isaiah, what are we talking about today?
My favorite topic. We're talking about fire. Except we're going a mile deep today into the variations.
That's right. And so this is a FIRE movement show. And so FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And basically the FIRE movement seeks a traditional retirement at a much younger age. And let me tell you, for those wondering if early retirement is possible, whether it's possible, it is possible. Why? Because you are living in a society. If you're living in America and you make over 60 grand, you are the 1% right now. Hate to break it to you. You live in the most affluent society in the history of the world. And so this is possible. This is not like a pipe dream. This is 100% possible. Now, your income will have something to say about this. Your current debt situation will have something to say about the timing of how to retire early. But that's why there are FIRE movement variations, because what's going to work for one person is not going to be the same. And when I coach people financially, I don't coach them I coach them into a vision for financial independence. And so when you fill out a coaching survey, you are going to have a FIRE coach, a coach that will coach you in one of these variations of the FIRE movement. So without
why would anybody want to retire early? Just maybe for those who have never heard our previous content on FIRE, just 30 seconds. Why should I care about early retirement?
Yeah. Kingdom. Oh man, I had the one-liner, but I don't remember.
Kingdom availability.
That's right. So financial freedom creates kingdom availability. When you have more time, you can spend that time doing whatever you want. And so when you retire early and you're financially independent, the possibilities of your life open up. If you want to spend your time leading worship, maybe having a job at a church that traditionally doesn't pay very much, or whatever. If you want a lifestyle where you travel, and there's all sorts of kingdom assignments all over the world. I just talked to someone yesterday that was just like, Mexico is a wide open door. We just need someone to go there. I was like, oh my. Imagine someone financially independent. They don't even have to worry about raising a partner team to go to Mexico.
No,
they just go. If you're financially independent, if God says go somewhere, there's nothing stopping you at all. And so that's the vision. This is a faith-based podcast. So this FIRE movement has a few variations. So Isaiah, you want to talk about a few of those before we go deep in each of them?
Yeah, there's 4 main ones that we're going to talk through today. Just real quick here. We have lean fire, and then the polar opposite is fat fire. Barista fire, so think of a Starbucks barista making your coffee, and then coast fire.
That's right. And so if you haven't heard these terms before, that's okay. They're very strange sounding, but we will give some language to these. And these are going to be, I'm thinking this as sort of a vocab lesson for our future. Yeah. Again, we're not financial experts, but we're just a fan of this movement. And so that's why we want to discuss these. And so lean fire, we'll start there, is a person that is attempting, so a person attempting lean fire will save to cover basic expenses. These individuals are minimalist and very frugal. So think of a person who lives in a tiny home with no car and just bikes everywhere. So that's an extreme example, but that's sort of what you're thinking about lean fire. You're thinking of someone who has just eliminated every expense that they could possibly think of, and they're just scraping by. And so it's defined as not scraping by, they're living a quote-unquote lower than average cost of living. And so that could actually mean moving to another country like Thailand, Costa Rica. There are countries where you can live and have a very, very nice lifestyle for much, much less. And so that's what lean fire is. It's a less than average cost of living.
Yeah, and just again back to the definition of fire, the idea there is you've saved up 25 times your yearly expense. So again, if you spend $40,000 a year, I think that's $1 million, 40 times 25, or 40,000 times 25. And so the reason why we're saying the lean fire movement is for minimalists is really like you're not trying to retire on a beach and have all your whatever homes and trying to have 4 cars and drive the Lexus. Like this is the person who's like, no, I care about freedom so much. I'm just gonna like live on $20,000 a year because I freaking can. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Is that's for the person who's like whatever it takes. Again, with still having the basic necessities, like I'm gonna forego the Lexus because I don't care about that. I care about freedom.
Yeah,
that's for you. For some of us, which we'll get to, I want my Tesla. So
that's right.
That probably leads us to our next.
For sure. And something I want to hit before we move on to fat fire. It's so funny, such a funny word. So when we talk about lean fire, this is something that I believe is a great option for people who get a later start in their investment journey. We talk about how, early on, 20 years old,
so
each of your dollars has an 88, we talked about the difference even between Gabby at 21 and me at 29. Like, she has twice the opportunity to build wealth than I do. I'm going to say that again. Gabby, one of my friends, your sister, has twice the investment, what did I just say? The opportunity to build wealth than I do. The thing she has that I didn't have is 8 years.
Yeah, and for context, what we're saying is Gabby, if she invests $1 at 20, by the time she's 65, it'll have turned into $88. But you, as 28,
about 44.
Exactly, it's a little bit less.
Yeah, so
almost half.
Yeah, for sure. And so this is a great option. Again, lean fire. So if you're listening right now, you're above the age of 40, or you're in debt and you're in your 30s, or whatever. If you just feel there's this hopelessness, like I can't retire early. This sounds like a pipe dream. Like, no. Lean fire is a
totally
option.
Realistic.
It's totally realistic. It's achievable. We talk about SMART goals. It's 100% achievable. It's measurable, and it's something that you can hit earlier on. Yeah. And so that's just what I wanted to hit there.
That's so good.
So the next variation of the FIRE movement we want to talk about is fat FIRE. And so, Isaiah, what is fat FIRE?
Yeah, so fat FIRE is going to be for somebody who wants an above average lifestyle. And so, I think I read some statistic that's like most people are going to spend more later in life. I don't know how true that actually is, but the idea behind retirement is you're going to be spending more later in your life. And so, if you want the Lexus, if you want the bigger home and you want to take vacations to Europe every year, it's going to cost money. And so you can't live lean, on a paid off home, driving a beater. Like the reality is you're going to need a lot more. So I don't know if that's $100,000 a year or 120 or 150. I think fat FIRE is really like, it's like above a certain threshold, correct?
Yeah. I think they define above average lifestyle. It's
maybe
like
125,
something like that. 100 grand a year. You're able to travel as much as you want. Really, you're able to, go to concerts every weekend, that sort of thing. And so that's what you can think of as fat FIRE. Someone traveling,
eating out all the time.
Think of a snowbird, someone who has a vacation house down in Florida and they miss the winters in their home state. And so that's an example of someone with an above average lifestyle.
So instead of needing $1 million, you're going to need
probably
5, 4,
6. That's what I would think fat FIRE, $5, $6, $7 million. And so a lot of people choose this path not because they're wanting to live extravagantly. Well, it's not because they're wanting to live an extravagant lifestyle, but because they don't know what's going to happen in the stock market. And so for people who've lived through 2008 and the recession and, even the recession, we had the small form recession in 2020 and all that craziness, you never know what the stock market is going to do. And so if you're a little bit on the side of like, oh, I don't know, it's better to, over prepare, right? And so that's the thing I like about fat FIRE. It's like a lot of people doing this, they're not wanting an extravagant lifestyle. They're just like, I want to make sure I have cushion and I want to build generational wealth. And so this is what we're talking about with generational wealth. When you are leaving your kids like $1 million or whatever. And so that's what that looks like. Anything else to add with fat FIRE, Isaiah?
If you want your Tesla,
hey,
that one's for you.
Fat FIRE.
I'm speaking to somebody in this room.
Yes. So so we've talked about lean FIRE, fat FIRE. We're going to barista FIRE. Now, this is another creative solution, very similar to lean FIRE. It's basically a combo. It's a combination between a traditional retirement where you're receiving money from your investments. Excuse me. And you are
also bringing in income still.
And you're also still bringing in income. And so the reason for the name Barista FIRE is Starbucks, if maybe you know this, maybe you don't, they provide healthcare for their part-time workers. Let me say that again. They provide healthcare, which is, we've not even done a healthcare podcast because the healthcare system is so tough. I'm doing research. It's tough. We're preparing for it, but it's a hard topic. It's a hard nut to crack. If you are a Starbucks employee, guess what? You've got it. You've got healthcare. You've got health insurance. And so they provide that. They provide employee matches. And so there's a bunch of benefits that you can get from being a Starbucks employee, not trying to give them part-time. Yeah. Exactly. And so some people retire by pulling on retirement funds, again, not a fully funded retirement, but also being a barista. And so they just work part-time. And that sounds like a pretty free life, right? If you're only working a part-time job and you can afford to do that and the rest of your hours are completely free, imagine what you could do. Just imagine. Just imagine what you could do with, 20 more hours in a week.
Half your week back.
It's beautiful.
Not for the man. It's amazing.
Exactly. And this is probably, on the cards for me, the future for me, for a number
for me as well.
Of different reasons. Not necessarily Starbucks, but this idea of working part-time throughout my life. I think
supplementing your income. Yeah.
In an earlier episode, we talked about being too old to work. Like, I think I'm going to try to find something for all of my life where I'm at least working part-time. That's a goal of mine until this heart stops beating or I get raptured. Like, I will be like, barista firing it up. And so we'll provide links for more information on Barista FIRE. And so what's our last one, Isaiah, that we want to discuss?
Our last one is Coast FIRE. Think of coasting in a car, cruising, right?
Cruise control. Exactly right.
And you talked about this being kind of like a snowball analogy.
Yeah. So the idea is, if you are age 20, let's just say hypothetically, you have, I'm going to do some quick math here. If every dollar is worth 88, I'm going to just pull out my handy dandy little calculator here. So let's just say,
so we're talking to 20-year-olds.
A 20-year-old. So this 20-year-old has the 88 X factor, right? So let's say they have hypothetically 30 grand saved times 88.
Right now.
Right now.
At 20 years old.
That's 2.6 million. 2.6 million. If you have 30 grand in the bank, meaning invested in index funds.
Not in the bank, but
you know what I mean. Yes. Yeah. Maybe the people don't know what I mean. I didn't mean the bank. I didn't mean the bank, guys. But that 2.6 million, you don't touch that 30 grand until you're 65, right? You don't add anything else to that. That 30 grand, and the math on this actually kind of like freaks me out a little bit. It's a little bit spooky that you could be 20 years old and be Coast Fire if you have 30 grand, but it is entirely possible.
Yep.
And that's why, just to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, I really don't like the college system. Because if you're working and you choose that, if you've ever played the game of life, there's two options. One, you go the route of college. Two, you go straight into your career. The advantage of going straight into your career is Coast Fire is a real possibility very on. And so if you go ballistic from 18 to 20 and save 30 grand, you are Coast Fire. And so what that means is you don't have to add another thing to retirement, and you're set, and you can just coast your way to financial independence. So how does that strike you, Isaiah?
It's so beautiful. It's so simple. Like it's not that. I mean, that may sound like a lot of money, but this is assuming you contribute nothing else for the rest of your life. That is like so crazy. So for those of us that are dollar cost averaging, like it's pretty. You got it in the bag. It's secure. Like you're gonna hit that. Yeah. So that's just really encouraging to hear, and it tells you that if you're a young person, you got to take advantage of that.
That's right. The thing that Gabby Ram has that I don't have is time.
Yeah.
And it's time. Her dollar bills have twice the ability to grow than mine, simply because she will retire about 8 years after me. The day that she'll be able to have Social Security benefits, she'll have twice as much of that buying power. And so we've hit Coast Fire. We're going to do a whole episode on Coast Fire. It's something I love nerding out on, but we'll provide more information in the show notes about how 30 grand can become 2.6 million.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyway, so this has been this episode of Finance Fam. Again, this is like a kind of deep dive into some vocab that we'll be using. So there's lean fire. In summary, so that is basically someone retiring with a below average cost of living. Fat Fire, it's an above average lifestyle. Barista Fire, it's when you do a little bit of a dual thing. You get a little bit of money coming from your retirement, a little bit coming from your job, and then Coast Fire is where you can coast your way to financial independence by saving aggressively at a young age. And so I really appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time. And remember,
don't look back.
Look ahead.